Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hot, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host on, and this is another report on the insane asylum known as WFAN.
They're coming to take me away, ha-ha, they're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha, to the funny fun.
Now, welcome back to the Baseball Hut 2, and hope you like this video and hit that subscribe button. So again, we're going to talk about the insane asylum known as WFAN. They used to be in Cop in Astoria Studios, which is a very famous place. They film Sesame Street there, or they used to. But now they're in the city. Not that that matters much, but just wanted to mention that. But here we have, again, this has been a kind of a rough week there at the fan, on the fan. They had been attacking the Mets since the Super Bowl was over. And it began during the week when Boomer and Gio, as I like to call them now, Norman and Gregory, started talking about the Mets offseason. And Gregory said, I quote, "The Mets signed 15 schmucks that I've never heard of." So what, now I'm paraphrasing this part, what is there to be excited about? Okay, I want to point something out. There are so many people that have stopped listening to the WFAN, and really is a reason why sports talk radio is dying. Sports talk radio is dying in this country because people are tired of hearing this garbage. The first few days of spring training, people want to enjoy it, watching pitchers and catchers. They want to see their favorite players, and it doesn't matter which team. So they don't want to hear that the big radio station, not only in this city, but in the country, complaining about a local team. There's a reason why my channels are doing so well. There's a reason why there's channels like Woody NYM and why there are channels like Mets Talk with Rob. People want to go where they can talk about the Mets and not hear garbage. And that's what we've been hearing for 35 years. WFAN has been abusing the Met fan audience for 35 years. And that I'm not exaggerating. Really, since Mike and the Mad Dog got there and we're doing their show, and I love Mike and the Mad Dog, but they abused the Met fans because they weren't Met fans. You know. Now, a lot of the guys that are on the fan, all this on-air talent, quote-unquote, they're all Met fans. But they certainly don't sound like it, and they certainly don't act like it a lot of times. I always say you have to be fair when you need to be fair. I'm probably the most fair person, most level-headed person. But when you have somebody who's a quote-unquote Met fan calling players that the Mets signed to minor league contracts schmucks, then there's something wrong there. There's a fairness there. We also know that the midday show, which is a disaster, you get all this attention. But the problem is with these days, I mean, what is radio these days? Is it meant to be still this sort of the 80s and the 90s and 70s of shock jocks, like when Don Imus was on and Howard Stern was on the radio? I mean, they still kind of do the same kind of monkey crap, you know. There's a reason why podcasts do so well, because they don't want to hear this nonsense. Now, I would assume, and I haven't listened much, very much a much older audience listens to talk radio, in particular sports talk radio. So they're probably used to this garbage. But younger people don't want to hear this. They want to follow the team, they want to follow the Mets. They want to hear positive things. Now, we're going to be honest here. The Mets had a very quiet offseason. But let's point something out. This was not a great offseason for free agents. Other than Yamamoto, you had a lot of older guys. You had a lot of players that did not fit this team the way it needed to be fit. Okay? You have contracts that are coming off the books after this year. Right now, the Mets have 15 free agents on the 40-man roster. It's a lot. And, of course, the big boy is at first. Now, we'll talk about him some point, again, at the end of this video. I don't know. But during the week on Wednesday, Brandon Tierney, who's part of the Tierney and Licata show, said that, and I think this is where a lot of the sort of pushback that the audience and the Met fans said, enough is enough. Enough is enough of this crap. When you attack Brandon Nimmo, who might be the most popular player on the Mets, and you say that he is doing fake hustle. You are scraping the bottom of the barrel complaining. And it's fucking, excuse my language, fucking stupid at this point. When you attack Brandon Nimmo and say that he is a phony, basically saying he's a phony. This guy is a success story. He's an American success story. Again, this is a kid that grew up in Wyoming that did not have a team in his school. He had to go on these travel teams to be a baseball player. And there's been very few players that have come out of Wyoming. And, you know, it's a cold weather state, all the way up in the north part of the country. And you have somebody calling him a phony, a fake hustle guy, saying that he's a 7-year-old on the field. This is a kid that he's had the odds against him. When the Mets drafted him in 2011, people were saying, "What are you doing?" And then as the years went on before Nimmo got to the big leagues, people were saying, "Well, why didn't you sign Jose Fernandez?" People were saying that for a long time because he got drafted after him. See Jose Fernandez anywhere. We won't go there. But you know what I'm saying? And then you have him go into the minor leagues. He was projected to be a 4th or 5th outfielder. And people felt that he couldn't hit lefties. He got to the big leagues, he could hit lefties. And the surprising thing is how fast he is, how really he's a very good base runner. He just doesn't steal bases. But he's done everything he could possibly do to improve his game. He's become a very good defensive center fielder. He's become a regular everyday player. He is what hard work, hustle is. He's the epitome of that. Well, this, I guess, had a big brushback. This had a big blowback on the radio station because I started noticing it on Thursday. A lot of stuff happened on Thursday. The tipping point came in the morning when they had that grifter Frank Fleming on, who works for Barstool Sports. Okay, Barstool Sports owner Dave Portnoy tried to buy the Mets during the process of the Will Ponce selling the team. That fell through. He was going to be one of the owners, but he hired Frank Fleming around the time that they announced that Steve Cohen had bought the club. So just to get an idea of the timing, it's a kind of weird timing, considering Frank Fleming's been known since 2017 when he had that meltdown at the train station because he missed his fucking train to get to Citi Field. But for 3 years, he doesn't hire him, and everybody knew about him. So that kind of fell through the way. So they had him on with Norman and Gregory on Thursday. I didn't know about that till I got home that night. I saw clips. I didn't watch it. I know what the whole shtick is of Fleming. There's nothing positive. Nothing that he talks about is positive. Everything is wrong. Everything is messed up. Nothing. And he complains all the time. Okay? Complains about the players that are in the minor leagues. Complains about the players on the club. If the players get traded, they're not getting any value from them. If they're on the team, they're garbage. It's like, and it's a grift. He has a background in broadcasting, Fleming. Now, they put him on with Norman and Gregory, and he basically went through his whole shtick about doing the whole clapping nonsense. It's bullshit. It's all nonsense. It's a grift. Okay, and they got brushed back from that. And it's not the first time in the last month and a half that Fleming has been on WFAN. He was on with the shill, the self-described shill, Keith McPherson. So this is the constant thing. This relationship with Barstool Sports is very deep because Dave Portnoy, just so you know, is good friends with Jeff Wilpon. Just so you know. They went to the same school in Michigan. Now, obviously there was a big blowback from this. I got home and I was able to watch the very beginning of Evan and Tiki on Thursday, 4 o'clock. The first thing they talked about was this comment that Giannotti had said, calling these players schmucks. Okay, I would mention this about Brandon Nimmo before I forget. On Thursday, Tierney backtracked and said, "Well, what I said was misconstrued. I went on the Odyssey.com. It had everything all the comments, all the quotes from Tierney. We know what he meant. So I respect Nimmo, but bullshit. He's so full of crap. He got caught saying something stupid, and people brushed back. Now on Thursday, I'm watching the show, and the first 2-3 minutes they're talking about this because they had to get somebody that is fair. It's also a message to me. Okay, that the fair ones talk. The fair one at the fan, the level-headed one at the fan, and they've done this before. WFAN has done this before. They'd like to send messages out to your host. They'll have Evan talk about it, so I could talk about it here. And I kind of knew what they were doing when I saw that. I was like, sons of bitches, they're trying to get me to do a video. Now, I wasn't going to do a video over the last 2 days because I just didn't feel like doing it. They want me to jump. I don't jump for anybody. Just so they know, and I know. I don't jump for anybody. But what's interesting is that they talked about it, and I was like, let me just turn this off. It doesn't matter. It's a bunch of garbage. It's just a way to get the fair-minded Met fan. I would imagine he's a customer, too. Goes to Citi Field. He's got his own season tickets there. Most of them don't. I don't think Salakai has season tickets. I don't think that Greg Giannotti and Norman Esiason have any kind of season tickets. But anyway, so on Friday night, somebody on Twitter, on X, sent me this video. His name is, I'm trying to remember now, because it's an unusual name. And he's written to me before, Mosio Posas. I don't have it written here. But he's a great subscriber, and he was following me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at the Baseball Hut. And you'll see me, I've been going really hard after them the last week or so on WFAN. But they did a video on their YouTube channel. I watched it. And I don't normally watch their clips or anything long. It was about 15 minutes long. Headline of this clip is, the headline of this video is, Mets fans erupt in outrage over off-season critique. Norman and Gregory. Now, this is brushed back from how they've been treating the Mets this week. And what they were saying was so disingenuous in this video. Your host has examples of them attacking the Mets relentlessly for 35 years. I have an article here. I don't have it here to read it to you, but I do have it saved. I'll put it in the link in the description. And this is what happened right after Steve Cohen had bought the club, and something happened at the hedge fund, and Boomer Esiason basically threatened Steve Cohen on the radio airways and said that if he didn't get information directly from Steve Cohen, he was never going to Citi Field. This is a month and a half of owning the team. So the unfairness that these assholes have been towards our team, America's team, has been relentless. And they've been attacking Steve Cohen for 3 years. Okay? Now, in the past, there's been no alternative. There's been nobody. And this is not, I heard that I guess I was told that this was fan propaganda from the team. The team's putting out, there's no propaganda here, asshole, Greg Giannotti. There's no propaganda here. Okay? The reality is being fair. Now, in this clip, they were kind of fair. They did the same monkey crap. Norman and Gregory do the same thing all the time. They kind of do the bad cop, good cop. But the good cop, which is normally Boomer, I haven't heard them talk in a while. But Boomer struggled to get through this, trying to justify their effing behavior on the air when it comes to the Mets. He was doing these sequiturs. I'll say it right. These non sequiturs, talking about the Knicks, talking about the Islanders. What the hell is he talking about? Rambling. I mean, he couldn't get his thoughts through. You know. And you can feel the seething. You could feel the anger from Greg. That over the air, how he wanted to just go ape shit on the air during this 15 minutes. Now, they were very calm. They were talking about the club. They were being complimentary towards David Stearns. Okay? 4 days after David Stearns was hired, Greg Giannotti wanted the Mets to fire him after 4 days. That's not normal. Okay? That is not how you act normal. Because he said, oh, if the Mets traded Pete Alonso, you Met fans are going to call up and say that, no, you don't speak for us. Okay? You speak for you and you speak for your corporation at CBS. You don't speak for us. Don't ever think you speak for us. Now, after listening to this clip, I feel like I've lost and this was 15 minutes, I feel like I've lost 15 minutes of my life. Because they were kind of trying to be reasonable, but they weren't. They were covering their asses because they knew that they went too far this week. People want to enjoy pitchers and catchers. We know they didn't have a great offseason in terms of bringing all these big players. They've done that in the past. They did that 2 years ago. They did that 3 years ago. You take a step back, build this farm system up. And you got to be positive. It's not everything's all negative. And you bring in the most toxic Mets fan in the country, and this asshole Fleming, who I don't know and I would mention this. I mentioned this a couple of times with Fleming. He predicted last year that Carlos Correa was going to win and get the Triple Crown when this guy has been unhealthy his whole career. So these assholes, I'm sure, didn't mention that in the interview, that he got that wrong. Okay. And why did he predict that? Because he didn't start with the Mets. Does that make any sense? Doesn't make any sense to me. But there's a reason, again, why sports talk radio is dying. And it's this constant negativity. We deal with so much negativity in this culture. And the Mets get dumped on by the media. And they get dumped on WFAN. So many people have written to me over the last 6 months and really have written to me and talked to me in my different live streams when I would talk about WFAN. And they all say the same thing. I used to love listening to them. I can't listen anymore because a lot of the times they talk about the Mets in such negative terms. Nothing they do, according to them, whatever the Mets do is wrong. And when they do it right, it's always wrong. During the season, it was getting pretty obvious that Buck Showalter was having problems as manager. There was a problem there. I think a lot of the fire was gone this year, last year, and a lot of these people on the fan were complaining that the Mets needed to fire Buck, including myself. So on the last day of the season, the Met ownership and Met front office said to Buck, "Gotta let you go, but you can decide how you want to leave. You can leave and tell the press before the game." Or we could do this on Monday. He decided to do it before the game. Okay? And this was known that night. People knew about it. But that Monday, WFAN went on the air and absolutely destroyed Steve Cohen. Destroyed Billy Epler. Saying, why'd you fire him like that? What's wrong with you? But meanwhile, these assholes wanted him fired. There's no good way to fire somebody. And Buck chose to get fired that way. I have so many examples over the last 6 months, folks. Just go and check the playlist I have. This is the first time I ever did a playlist on any channel is WFAN. Talking about their insanity. And talking about how they just attack the Mets on a regular basis. So this is not just this week and this off season. This has been going on for 30 years plus. WFAN's had this habit of abusing the Met fans, abusing the Met fan audience. Now, I have no problem criticizing the club. I have no problem criticizing any player because I want to point a very simple thing out. I'm not going anywhere as a fan. Okay? So if a player doesn't work out here, oh, well, goodbye, see you later. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, especially if they're a jerk. That's my attitude. I'm not going anywhere. So that's how I feel. So I did a video, and I'll post that and a link in the description. I did a rant, this was back in May. I was ahead of the curve 6 weeks before these assholes started complaining about the club. That there was a problem with the club down the line, okay? And I think the Mets got a wind of this because their behavior got very strange after they started doing videos on them like this. I hate having to do it, But I just ripped the whole club apart. Now, I did kind of hold back on certain things. I held back on going after Pete, and I didn't really go after Pete anyway. I love Pete. But I kind of held back going after Buck. I was very positive about Brett Beatty. But then as the summer went on, you noticed certain trends. There's a problem with the GM. There's a problem with the manager. Problem with Brett Beatty. And I just ripped into the club as we went further into the summer. They were behind the curve. Okay? So I can hammer this team and be very fair. But I'm a fan that wants the Mets to win. And even though I want subscribers here, I'll take a hit. You know, these guys are desperate for ratings because they've been doing the same model, folks. Same model on radio for 60, 70 years. Shock jock stuff. This ain't the 70s, man. Don Imus is not saying, nah. He's not doing that anymore. He's long passed away. He's not doing the Reverend Hargis anymore. Those days are over. There's no like Howard Stern doing all the disgusting things on the radio that he was doing back in the day. Those days are over. Okay, podcasts are the wave. And like I said, I'm not going anywhere. Even if this thing with YouTube doesn't work out, I'm going to still be around. You're going to find me somewhere. Talking about the Mets. That's never going to change. Okay, that's never going to change. But people like myself are alternatives. Because I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you what I think about any player. You write to me in the comment section. I'll tell you what I think about a player. Like I said, if they don't work out, they're gone. You know. And it's funny. I was calling Daniel Vogelback a loser. Sal Licata started calling him that at the end of the season. I was on him long before anybody else. Because they don't really pay attention, really. They go for the outrage, but they don't pay attention to what's going on in these games, how these players are reacting, and how things are going back and forth. I pay attention to everything. That's why this stuff, I'm really irritated. This thing with Brandon Nimmo really irritated me this week. Because he's an American success story, and he should be held up for a very high esteem, and the Met fans love Brandon. There's nobody, Edna Hutt means nobody does love Brandon, except for Brandon Tierney, the coconut head. Now, I was going to do this long video. I'm surprised this video's gone on as long as that. It's going to ram me rambling. But there's a lot to get unpacked here because a lot of stuff happened this week. The attacks on this club have been relentless, especially the last 3 years. It has not stopped. They complain about everything. A month into owning the team, the morning show complained that the Mets hadn't made a move yet. That Steve Cohen hadn't made a move yet. And a couple weeks after that, they complained, Boomer, wanting to know about what's going on with the Cohen business outside of baseball. It's none of your business, asshole. And I will pop up that article in a future video. And then you have this mid-morning show, which is desperate to trade Pete Alonso. This radio station is desperate to trade him, get him off the Mets. I don't know why. The only thing I can think of is that maybe he might not be a disgusting degenerate like the most of the media is. That might be the problem. He's not a degenerate. He seems to be a very nice guy. So that's how I'm looking at it. I'm looking through that kind of a lens. That he's not a disgusting degenerate like and he's probably not a disgusting gambler like most of the guys and people on the fan. I would know about that because Greg Giannotti is one of the biggest, cattiest talk show hosts on their radio station that basically badmouths everybody and basically said on the air many times that a lot of these people on the air have major gambling problems. And this is the kind of stuff you get at the insane asylum known as WFAN.
They're coming to take me away, ha ha. They're coming to take me away, ho ho, hee hee, ha ha. To the funny fun.